Thank you. My name is Boon, and I apologize beforehand because my presentation will be slightly atypical. I will be sharing with you a little bit about my personal story as a bomb victim in Indonesia, and then tell you a little bit what initiative we are undertaking in Indonesia with regards to victims of terrorist bomb attacks, terrorist attacks in general, actually. Before the bomb, which occurred in 2009, my life was pretty normal. I had been living and working in Indonesia for 5 years as a political consultant, had been very active socially and sportively, was in a beautiful relationship and was basically planning a family soon. However, on the morning of the 17th of July in 2009, we were having a business meeting with 20 of our clients, and a young guy, 17 years old, named Denny Dwi Permana, walked in with 2 bombs on his body. And as you see in the seating chart, I barely survived. I'll show it. The green ones are the ones that survived. The black and the dark blue one did not, unfortunately, and I'm the yellow one. So I was really lucky there. I still remember that morning. We were starting our meeting. We were making jokes a little bit, and I was just about to counter someone who was challenging me, and nothing came out of my mouth. I couldn't breathe. Everything went blue before my eyes, and I had the feeling that I was falling. Not falling from the chair, but falling in free sky. That feeling lasted for probably a minute, I don't know, when I woke up in the sprinklers of the hotel, and lying on the ground in the rubble, and you'll see some ideas of how that must have looked like. And I couldn't move my left leg and my right arm, so I couldn't get up. So I shouted for help, and after a couple of minutes, a security guard came and carried me outside and put me on the street, like you see there. That's not me, but it's illustrative of how it was. And after a couple of minutes there, I was brought to the hospital, and I still remember all of this, where I passed out. Probably because I felt safe and my survivor instinct was not necessary anymore. Now, I was kept for 3 weeks in an induced coma, first in Indonesia, then in Singapore. During those 3 weeks I had almost daily surgeries. My 2 legs were amputated. I was treated for severe burning wounds. 70% of my body has been burned, and last but not least, terrorists thought it would be good to put some screws and bolts from the TV set of the hotel room where they put together the bomb into the bomb to inflict major damage. Now, one of those screws is still in my heart up until today. I was lucky, it was a Philips TV set. It's a Dutch brand, for you who don't know. I don't know, so I'm still 100% Dutch made. After 3 weeks of induced coma, I woke up and I immediately remembered the aftermath, and after realizing that my legs were gone and how bad I was laying there, I only had 2 questions, and it was, why would I still want to live, and why me? Luckily, my mother was there to help me with these questions, and she said that the first one, well, Max, there's still enough to live for in life. And at the second, she said, you are not the first and will not be the last victim of an unjust crime. Those answers immediately gave me the power to fight on and fight for my life, basically, in the beginning. But after that, also fight for my recovery and rehabilitation, during which I've been working very hard to walk on prosthetic legs. As you all could have seen today, I've not been very successful yet, but I'm still working on it. Basically, when I woke up, pretty soon after I woke up, even before I could talk, I already had the desire to meet the family of the bomber. This young guy, 70 years old, came from a broken family, and I consider him also a victim of brainwashing by some very sick people. So I wanted to do something. I wanted to be more than just a victim, and I wanted to get engaged in fighting terrorism. I only didn't know how. It wasn't easy for me, it still is not, but for me the prospect of being able to do something and prevent something similar in the future does outweigh the burden for me personally. The rationale for me to get involved as a victim is that I'm pretty sure that Danny Dwipermana, the youngster that walked in with the bomb and blew himself up as well, he didn't want to hurt me personally. I'm pretty sure. He just wanted to create hatred and fear among society. However, what he probably had not realized before he walked in, or when he walked in, is that he did hurt me and numerous other victims who most likely looked more like him than he probably realized. And I feel that terrorists, convicted terrorists, potential terrorists, and society at large should know what pain they create amongst the victims of terrorism and violent extremism. Now I don't believe that. Now I do believe that from hatred, hatred only creates hatred. So I don't think it would be good to do this in an atmosphere of vengeance. But I truly believe in a positive and constructive dialogue to give the victims a face towards terrorists, potential terrorists, and society. However, I found that there was no existing framework or structure to get involved as a victim. And therefore, we initiated a project to build that framework to structurally involve victims in the fight against violent extremism. Now, this project, which will start in July this year, will be initially undertaken in Indonesia, and it should result in a blueprint for how to set up those structures, which can then possibly, after local adaptations, be implemented in other countries as well. It is currently a cooperation project between the International Center for Counterterrorism in The Hague with the Indonesian government, closely coordinated with Indonesian civil society organizations such as Nahdlatul Ulama, but also the Indonesian Association for Bomb Victims. And it is supported by a Dutch foundation and several governments, among which also the Dutch government. And what we are basically aiming to do is to create a focal point where counter-terrorism and counter-violent extremism efforts can be coordinated between the government, civil society, and us as victims in between, more or less. We need to set up a central database of existing victims, which should be updated whenever there are new victims, which I hope there will not, but I'm not very optimistic on that. Then we need to establish protocols for when we should approach victims. I mean, just after waking up, I wasn't ready to already think about getting involved, but it shouldn't wait for 2 years either. There should become protocols for that, and then we should also carefully select the victims who have a compelling story to tell, because telling the wrong story or victims who are not ready to engage in positive and constructive dialogue could work totally counterproductive, I think. Now then it will be necessary to train the victims to get engaged, to be involved in outreach efforts, and also support them in any way needed to be able to conduct those outreach efforts. Then to focus our efforts, we should have mapped the areas of increased radicalization risk, so we can focus our efforts and not be wasting valuable human resources. And we can identify the opportunities for our outreach efforts within society, such as schools, madrasas, community organizations, local and national press, in the specific areas. We should also choose existing programs of counter-radicalization and countering violent extremism, where we can mobilize the victims, and we should create a media strategy so that we will not only be reactive whenever there is a attack again, but also proactive, hoping to prevent attacks. Finally then, but not unimportant, I think we should establish the modalities necessary for victims' participation, because we should recognize that those victims, their lives have been totally disrupted in most cases, and this could also become some sort of a vehicle to get them reintegrated and on their feet, basically, again, no pun intended, and keep supporting them. And what we will do in Indonesia at the end of the project is implement a pilot project where we also will test some outreach efforts with some selected victims, and then evaluate the outcome and implement it as well in the blueprint. I thank you for your time, and if there's any questions.